The interesting thing is I found when I managed people that being brutally honest and open was the far best way. I watched employees and I watched a lot of managers and even managers talking to me. You knew they weren't telling you the full truth. They weren't giving you constructive feedback. And you really noticed that that's not helpful. So what I found was that many times when I took over a new department, the first thing I would say is, guys, I care enough about you to tell you the truth. And you may not want to hear it, but I'm going to tell you the truth.
Some experts chase attention, but the smart ones build authority. You're listening to the Authority on Demand podcast, where credibility becomes your competitive advantage. Every week, we're pulling back the curtain on how founders and leaders turn expertise into inbound demand through books that position, media that converse, and strategies that actually move the needle. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authority on Demand. Now, let's turn your authority into leverage. Okay, everybody. So you know that sinking feeling when you realize that you've been driving in the wrong direction for the last 30 minutes? Now imagine that's not your commute, it's your career, and you've been doing the wrong way for 30 years. But the truth is that we have a GPS for everything. Google Maps tells you the fastest route to avoid traffic. Your phone warns you about speed traps. Apps even alert you to scenic overlooks worth stopping for. But your career, the one thing you'll spend 80,000 hours of your life doing, it's navigating blind. So, Robert Maurice Cretel didn't just survive 40 years in corporate America. He studied it like an anthropologist, took notes like a journalist, and emerged with a blueprint most people wish they had at 25. This book right here is something that everybody can learn from. It's 4 decades of pattern recognition distilled into principles that you can actually use on Monday morning. So, it's time to get into it. Robert, I am so
You.
happy to have you on our podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey, real quick before we jump back in, if you're loving what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button and drop us a like. We're bringing you the best authors, the most real conversations, and all the writing wisdom that you didn't know you needed. So stick around because it only gets better from here. All right, now let's get back to the conversation. Of course. I mean, you definitely have lived a life worth sharing with others, and, gathered insights that everybody can learn from, whether or not they're at a place in their career where they, think they might need to learn to make a change or stay, whatever it is, you have the right ideas for everybody. So, let's start by talking about you, though, before we dive into the book too much. I mean, let's begin with your career. You started in New York City in the 1980s. Computers and cell phones didn't exist. So tell us about all that. Like, how did that shape your work ethic and how did it, develop throughout the years?
Well, thank you. Well, one of the benefits of having worked through all of that is, excuse me, I have the benefit of seeing technology brought into our industry, one industry, and all industries in general. But I was very specific with the insurance industry. As we're going through this next one with artificial intelligence, I've been pretty busy talking to a lot of vendors and a lot of carriers about how to incorporate what is the new, shiny tool on the marketplace. And it's very easy to relate because I can tell you, folks, I started with no cell phones, and most people under 50 or even in their mid 50s really can't fathom what life was like without a personal computer or a phone. And so, in fact, I'm working on an article now that is taking technology and returning kind of back to the future where the information comes to the person rather than information has to be shared with skilled people. You can learn skills through the artificial intelligence. So, and I appreciate your intro because I did have my eyes wide open during my career. um, to give a little color to where it all started, I grew up in northern New Jersey, and like many people from New Jersey, I sought to go elsewhere for college. And I ended up down in Eastern North Carolina at East Carolina University, had a great 4 years. But when I was finished with no job on the horizon coming out of school, I returned to New York. And someone mentioned to me a very interesting story about claims in the insurance industry. And I thought, okay, that's something I could look into. And I applied for a job with Liberty Mutual and I got accepted, got hired. And so I spent 1 full year working in New York. The relevance of that today's world is the training program was roughly 3 weeks. And really there was no technology to train to. There was a pen with ink in it was really your technology, using a piece of graph paper to draw an intersection or a loss site was really the technology. So the concepts were what you learned. Fast forward, 20, 30 years later in my career, we remained having 3 weeks worth of training, but a significant amount of it was just what buttons to push on the computer. So I felt like a lot of the people coming into the industry in the last part of my career really weren't getting the benefit of understanding what their roles were. So that was interesting. So when I was working in New York, as you know, New York's a very expensive place to live. Insurance adjusters don't get paid the most. And so I wanted to return to North Carolina where I could, get a apartment and, live with some friends and what have you. And what I learned when I was working in New York City, that was that State Farm Insurance Company was the largest insurance company in the country. So if I was going to work for anybody, I was going to work for them. So I sought out a job with them. So
Right.
funny little sideline story, if I could. I applied many times. I did not get hired. I took a job as a landscaper just to pay the rent. And one of our clients, wouldn't you know it, was the Raleigh, North Carolina claim office, where I would carry a resume in my back pocket that would be covered with leaf blower oil. And I would hand it to the manager there trying to get a job. And it wasn't until a few months later that I actually got a job, but in Winston-Salem. So that's where it all started.
That's where it all started. A long journey that led you here, and you gathered all those insights that made it into the book throughout that process too. So, not only did you like learn from everything, experience it, but you're able to, share it with others eventually. Was there like a moment in your life when you decided, what, I have to start writing everything down?
Not really. I do enjoy writing anyway. I enjoy speaking, as you probably will figure that out pretty quickly. And I did 10 years in Toastmasters, so I could do presenting. I enjoyed that. And in order to really do a good presentation verbally, you have to have a pretty good script. So that's really where it started. Throughout my career, I was always volunteering either for conferences in the industry or with the companies I worked for to be a primary speaker at their various functions. And that's where a lot of the writing came from, to make things interesting, make it exciting. And I hope that it is. I think that it is. I've been told by several that I do a pretty good job of keeping people interested and adding humor to otherwise dull stories. So something I do enjoy.
Understood. Yeah, of course. And I mean, clearly it all worked out because here we are now with that. To go into more of the book then about like the content of it that people can be really excited about and to learn about the insights that you have. I mean, there's so many of them, but one of my favorites that I think we can talk about today is this one moment in the book that you talk about, an office manager pulled your aside and said, quote, "You're playing Go Fish, we're playing poker." I mean, you have these like humbling moments weaved into the book too. So tell us about how criticism shapes your approach to learning and listening.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for pointing that one out. And just to be, again, when I left New York City, I assumed, as many do, that if I could be successful in New York, then working in Winston-Salem, I could do it with my, half time, part time. And that's where my arrogance got in the way of really understanding. Um, I was pretty loud. I was pretty opinionated, and clearly, what the manager was trying to tell me. Interesting enough, he was from Long Island, so we were kind of kindred spirits down south. And he just pulled me aside, and he made that comment and basically said, "Don't get ahead of yourself. Just learn everything you can. You've got the right passion. You've got the right instincts and knowledge, but you just have to learn more before you can start telling people who've been around for 10 or 15 years how to do their job." And it was humbling, but it was incredibly learning. And from that, I learned the value of honest leadership. Right, the manager could have easily let you be, arrogant and obnoxious and to your own demise, versus I'll have this more, direct conversation, and depending upon how I react is how whether or not it helps me or hurts me.
Understood. And I like that you just said that how you react to it, right? It's all about that reaction because you control your own
Definitely.
narrative by doing that.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of your core message after all, isn't it? Like you don't just allow things to happen to you. You have to figure out how you're going to interpret it. Do you learn from it? Do you take direction from it? Actually, that's the last line of your book, actually. Don't just allow your career to happen to you, grab the wheel and drive. So, yeah, I think anybody listening today just has a ton to learn from you in that regard.
I think
Um,
so. And, again, that was really put in there because I got into management at 26. So for almost 40 years, I was managing people at the beginning of my career, people much older than me. At the end of my career, people much younger than me. And what I found was a common denominator with the least happy were the ones who didn't end up where they expected to be. And part of that was they allowed their careers to come to them versus driving their own destiny and making their own decisions. And I think it's important that people kind of start off with that in mind.
Understood. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's definitely an inspiring piece of advice for people to hold on to and learn from. And guys, if you want to learn more about that, well, this book is just chock full of advice like that. But I would love to transition a little bit into the writing process because we are an author's podcast. We love to hear writing tips. So talk to us about like a day in the life of the writing for you. Like, was there a certain routine that you got into or any challenges in getting it done? What was it like?
I really struggled with, we call it writer's block. I would get to a point and I would not fully understand where to go next, where I wanted to take the message, where I wanted to take. And I found myself being overly wordy, right? It's very similar to when you're speaking and you're trying to make a point, but you can't quite get there. It just kind of all comes out. So to me, the hardest part was keeping focused and getting the message across. I do like sharing personal stories because I think that puts a lot of color to it. It's easy to talk about a concept, but I think it has more value if you say, oh, here's the concept, but here's how it actually applied that I saw, and maybe others can relate to the same type of thing. I found that getting up and walking away was good. But when I started wanting to get to the finish line, I had to fight through it. One of the things I started doing was putting chapters on separate documents so that I could move between them and not have to go up and down, but actually, okay, I'm going to drop this chapter now. And I just had a thought. I'll go to another chapter on a similar but different topic, and I'll be able to continue there. That kept my thoughts separate a little bit easier. Otherwise, I found that a lot of times I would kind of weave the same message into several different parts of the book.
Understood. I like that process. It's unique, but you have to figure out what works best for you, right? And that's kind of what got you through that writer's block, which is a serious problem for a lot of authors. So thank you for sharing that. Everybody experiences that. You got to find what works best for you to move past it.
Yeah.
Um, but that being said, a lot of this book is pretty deeply personal. I mean, you share personal struggles, even like salary numbers. What was that like with that such vulnerability? Was there any like fear involved or um, inhibition in sharing that kind of information? I'm sure it must have been challenging in a way.
It is to a point, but Danielle, the interesting thing is I found when I managed people that being brutally honest and open was the far best way. I watched employees and I watched a lot of managers and even managers talking to me. You knew they weren't telling you the full truth. They weren't giving you constructive feedback. And you really notice that that's not helpful. So what I found was that many times when I took over a new department, the first thing I would say is, guys, I care enough about you to tell you the truth. And you may not want to hear it, but I'm going to tell you the truth because I want you to have a career. I want you to have a job. I want you to have the job that you want. If you want to be promoted and move up in the organization, I'll tell you how to do it. I'm not going to give it to you. You're going to have to earn it, right? And that's where a lot of these things start to come into fruition when you see, people go, oh, yes, I've now been in the business for over 20 years. I think I would like to be in management. Okay, but what have you done on the way up? You haven't really built the foundation to make you a real viable candidate for the opportunities you now say you want. So what I always found, it is a little vulnerable, but I always seem to get more out of just being brutally honest with people, including people who I worked for. If there was something that I wasn't happy with, this is how I feel. This is why I feel this way. This is what I'd like to see change. More times than not, it didn't. But, at least we were on the same page and there was a mutual respect that, hey, we can have these brutally honest conversations where we are both have a vested interest in success and there's no ramifications. We're all adults in this situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, and it's more so just to see people teach people to learn from it too, right? So no need to hold back and just go for it. I like that. But that being said though, was there any chapter that was harder to write than others? Or like or and why would that be? Like is there one that like stands out more so?
I think, when I look back on, I've read the book now a couple of times. I think the first one is one of the bigger challenges, just because I didn't really do that. Okay, I jumped in, and when I found that an industry that I was doing okay in, that I liked, and it seemed to match my skill set, and then I found a company that I liked and seemed to think highly of me, I basically just gave myself to them and said, if you want to move me all over the place, I'll go. I'll do whatever you want to get to the next level. In hindsight, I have absolutely no regrets, but I want people to understand that when you get on that, if you do commit to something like that, now you have to be concerned about when things change, either in your personal life or in the company or something else. So it's maybe be a little more selfish at times about, hey, these are the parameters that I want to work within, and how do I make that happen? It's interesting now. I've been doing some mock interviews with some college seniors, and that's one of the first things I start asking. Hey, what are your priorities? Was it salary? Is it title? Is it industry? Is it mission? Is it location? And a lot of them haven't quite really not only ranked them, but then weight them to say, you know what, I really, really want to live here, or I really, really want to do this. It's valuable because, again, through my career, I have found people who committed to things that maybe a little further down the road they wish they hadn't. For those people that move a lot, it's changed over the years, and not as many companies as prone to move people like they used to physically, relocations. But a lot of people ended up in a place where they really were never happy, and then they were stuck there and they couldn't get out. And that's tough. I don't like to see people in positions like that. It does take its toll on you personally.
Right, absolutely. So I can see you have that empathy for others in that way. And it's sad to see it, but of course, a book like this at least offers guidance to people who are in the same situation too. So if you're listening to this, guys, and you can relate to that, well, this book is the perfect one to open up and to get some guidance in that regard. Now that you have the book on the shelves and you're finally able to share this with everybody, what's next on the agenda? What's next in the road for you to for share their message?
Well, primary objective, especially with this particular book, and I call it my first, it's not my last. Um, Two things I can answer to that. One is, like I mentioned earlier, I did a lot of conferences within the insurance industry. There's a lot of them. And I'll back up a little bit. This book, the genesis of this book is really a presentation that I did many conferences, trying to give people some optimism and some opportunities for their career. And so I'd like to get back out. And now I have something tangible to say, hey, in addition to being able to do the presentation, your attendees will walk away with something tangible. And I really do like the activities, because it does add a little stickiness to the idea. It's a little more, it's not quite a classroom textbook, but it does make you actually go through a few things to make sure you're understanding what we're trying to do. So I would like to do that. Um, my second venture I'm outlining for right now, but I don't really have a timeline. The working title is Leading from the Middle. Having been a senior manager, but not a CEO, I think there's a lot that we in the middle can help managers, how they help them navigate their careers. You see a lot of books, and I've read several by the CEOs of major corporations. Well, it's a pyramid, and not many people make it to that top. But there's a lot of us in the middle who still have extreme value and add value to the organization, add value to the people that, their direct reports. And I think there's a message there too. As you're trying to scale the mountain, you can always reach back and, give the folks behind you a little push too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so inspiring that you're doing so. I mean, not only have you spent so much time to get, these practices and thoughts into the book, but you're doing more with it. You're finding a way to preach to other platforms. And this is a great way for people to get in touch with things and for you to give back as well. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
really important that you're doing that.
Thank you. I enjoy it.
Yeah. So I mean, that being said, then if people do want to get in touch then and learn a little bit more about the book or these future endeavors, or even to ask you advice, what's the best method for people to do so?
Really, the best method is through my email, and I just kept one so that it was easy to follow. And it's R Cretel, it's Robert, and then my last name Cretel, the number one at gmail.com.
Okay.
And so it's R Cretel, Cretel, the number one at gmail.com. And I have it with me all the time. That's why I found it was just easier to do that. I get texts and emails and phone calls from various consulting firms now, and I work with them, and that's been fun too. Just working with all these tech companies and helping them navigate my old industry and speak the language and basically translate for them as to what the company needs versus what they're providing. So that's the best way. And I'd love to hear from folks because I do, like I said, I just recently was involved with some college seniors getting ready to embark on their own careers. And I'm not the best marketer. I didn't try to sell the book. But as I was answering their questions and going through the role play, so many things came out. I was like, oh, I could help you with this.
Absolutely. So, hey, I love that. And we're going to put that information in the description box of this podcast today. So, if you're listening and you want to get connected, well, just click on over after we're finished. But we're not quite done yet because I know you have just like a wealth of more knowledge to share with us. So, I'm curious to know, like, if someone could pick, one piece of advice from your book and carry it with them, what would it be? What's like the main top tier piece for us to hold on to after?
Two concepts that are tied for top that I've seen. Number one is it is your responsibility. Take 100% ownership. We all have reasons. I was recently talking with someone on this topic, and you know, any organization, large or small, is a microcosm of society with all of the adverse human traits that we have: jealousy, narcissism, is all the isms that are out there. We're all going to face them, and we all are going to face them at some point. And if you accept that, okay, that's my obstacle, whatever that ism is, whatever it is, maybe you're the organization just doesn't like, people like you or whatever it is, then it's still your career. So if you're going to accept that and allow them to, stop you, then it's your fault. It's not theirs, right? So you really need to take 100% off, ownership. And one of my favorite phrases when somebody would say, but these people aren't doing their work the way they're supposed to. Therefore, what? You want to be successful, that's the obstacle. What are you going to do about it? If you're going to keep walking into the obstacle, then there's really no hope for you. So I think, and again, to get personal, I ran into that in my career and changed companies. And, it's like, didn't want to after 20 years, but it was just at some point you have to say it's mine. If my success and failure, it has to be on me. And I want to be the one to make those decisions, not let other people drive it. The other concept, which they're very similar, I think, in the end result, but is don't play defense against yourself. I see that a lot. I see so many people that are talented, maybe a little raw in their skill sets or whatever, and they will, look at an opportunity, whether it's a new company or whether it's within their company, if a promotional opportunity, and they'll come up with all the reasons why they're not qualified. And if the world's hard enough, there's enough people playing defense against you. Don't play defense against yourself. Start, really emphasizing your strong points and your strong suits and, exploit those as much as you can. If you identify a weakness in that process, fill it in, fix it, get rid of it. But in the meantime, if you want something, go ask for it. More than likely, you'll get good information. If you don't get what you want, you'll still end up with an experience that's going to make you stronger. So those are my two primary messages.
I love that, and I love that last phrase you just said too. Like, it makes you stronger. It's your choice how you handle it, like we mentioned before. But it's also, it's something to think about because it helps to build yourself up and to make better decisions down the road. And ultimately, it's a learned experience. That's what this book is truly all about. So, yeah, I love that, and it's a great overview for people to hold on to. And again, guys, I mean, you want to learn more, all you have to do is, pick up the book and order it. It's on Amazon, and we're going to put the links in the description box for everyone to check out. Um, so yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on today, Robert. I really appreciate it, and getting to learn more about you and your book, and it's been a great conversation.
Thank you very much. No, and I appreciate all the work and help you've provided over the getting it out. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that you did quite a bit of assistance for me keeping it on track. So thank you.
Thank you. And yet, to our listeners, I did help Robert, but of course, the main message, the ideas, the insights were all his. So check it out, guys. It's a beautiful book, a brilliant cover, by the way. I didn't quite ask you who designed the cover. You told me about the color choices, but was there somebody who helped you with the artwork?
I did the majority of it. I did work with someone who had to, put it into the format that was required for Amazon. But I when I came up with the subtitle of Navigating a Career on Your Terms, which I think is important, the ship just seemed to make sense. And then Purple and Gold is homage to my East Carolina Pirates. And so it just all fell into place.
Understood. Yeah, okay. Well, I absolutely love it. I appreciate all of this. And everyone who is listening today, just remember, your career is going to happen whether you design it or not. So the question is whether you're going to be an architect or just a tenant. And you can learn more about that from the book. So until next time, keep building expertise, keep taking ownership, and keep showing us that you can be the author of your own story. This has been the Officer on Mission podcast, and we'll see you next time, everybody. That's a wrap on another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a founder or a leader who's ready to stop being the best kept secret in their industry. If you want to turn your expertise into inbound demand, head to authorityondemand.com to see how we help clients go from unknown to in demand. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now, go build some authority.